there was a lot of sensitivity. Elway did not take that loss very
He's a
well. I
competitor, of
mean,
course not.
yeah, there was just a lot of bitterness. The perception was that one, it cost him the Heisman. Two, it cost their team a bowl game. And so there was a lot of sensitivity to him.
Welcome, guys, to the Famisphere podcast. I'm your host, Keith. I'm joined by Coach King, and I'm also joined today by Kevin Moen. Kevin is best known for scoring the touchdown against Stanford when Cal it was on a kickoff return, if I'm right, and ended up taking out one of the Stanford uh, band members. Sorry,
The
and
play.
the play and take us back to that day. What do you remember best about what happened at the end of that game?
Well, first of all, it was our big game. Stanford Cal is a historic rivalry, 100
Yeah.
years of competition, and a history of kind of crazy endings throughout those games. My involvement in three of the four that I played in all had magical endings. This one kind of crowned everything, though, and you know, it was the perfect setting for a very unique ending to a game. It was our big game, full stadium. John Elway was the quarterback at Stanford and led them to a magical fourth quarter drive at the end of the game to what they perceived was the winning field goal. So that was kind of the setting for when we got on the field to do the kickoff return. It was a little depressing, to be honest with you. We had played a really good game, kind of controlled Elway to a certain degree, and kind of felt deserving of that win. So with 8 seconds left for them to kick a field goal to take the lead, it was a little disheartening. But that just kind of set the stage for a unexpected, unplanned for uh, kind of continuity of the right guys in the right place doing the right things that allowed for five laterals and me to stroll through the Stanford band and run over the trombone player at the end.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk a little more about this, I'm sure, throughout, but how exactly I guess my question first off when watching the play, everyone knows about the play. How exactly did the band get on the field? Like, what happened to allow that to take place? And when
Well,
did you
there,
realize the band was on the field?
yeah. So they kind of assumed the game was over, so they were given instructions to come out. They were kind of sitting in the stands right by the end zone, and when the game was perceived to be over, they were called out to go start their celebration. So somebody jumped the gun a little bit on kind of asking the band to come on the field to start playing, which is what they were doing when I ran through them. They had already kind of commenced playing and a premature celebration. So who let them on the field, I don't know, but that was kind of their assumption was the game was over. Let's go on the field and start our post game celebration. They got my celebration instead.
Yeah. No doubt. And um, remind me, the player or the band member that you took out, um, can you remind me one more time his name again,
Gary
please? Okay.
Terrell.
Now, I thought I saw somewhere that or read somewhere that you two were still in contact, that you still talk fairly
Oh yeah,
frequently. Is that true?
throughout the years, there's been documentaries made. There's been commentary spoofs made. There's been interviews and all kinds of different media exposure for that play. And the two guys that seemed to be involved most with it was me and him.
Of
So
course.
so he's kind of had a whole history of being involved in the post aftermath, which is fine. Great guy. He was one of the guys post event that kind of took it in stride. Hey, it wasn't his fault they lost the game. He just happened to be following orders and being on the field and was at the wrong place at the wrong time. A lot of other Stanford people were extremely bitter at that moment, when that play occurred. So Gary kind of just took it in stride, and so yes, over the years he and I have become buddies and kind of have done a lot together through the years regarding the play.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Tell us, when you talk about taking the field with 8 seconds left, and just disheartening. How much planning actually went into the play?
None. So, when you try to construct something like that, and a lot of teams try to do it at the end, a desperation play, and first of all, you don't really know where the ball is going to go on a kickoff. So the reaction is really what occurred, not a pre-planned thing. The only thing I would say is Joe Cap, who was our coach, implemented a kind of a workout deal after our games on Sunday to kind of get loose and warm up, and it was called Grabas, and you can spell that out and figure out what that means. But the Grabas format was basically 20 guys on each side of the field, and you could do whatever you wanted with the ball. You could lateral it, you could throw it, you could kick it, whatever. And so that kind of set a groundwork of spontaneity within our group. And the guys that were associated with the play, Richard Rogers primarily, who handled the ball twice, was a high school option quarterback. I was a high school option quarterback. And
Wow.
so the right guys were there. And once the momentum and everybody kind of got in the flow of, hey, don't let the ball die, it kind of just evolved. And so one lateral led to another, and then everybody was kind of in the right position at the right time to execute a unplanned for event. It was all spontaneity.
So, and we'll come back to this. I want to back up just a little bit and ask you about Cal, I guess, and about you as a player. Take us back to yourself as a high school player. Where were you being recruited, and why did you settle on Cal?
Well, I was mostly recruited as a quarterback, to be honest with you. I was recruited to a lot of Pac-10 schools, Arizona, Washington State, Iowa, some other schools that predominantly wanted me to play quarterback. I felt my longevity in the game was more on a defensive side. I loved hitting guys. I loved the physicality of defense. I didn't necessarily like it was an era of option running, option quarterbacks, that kind of thing, and I was pretty good at that. I just didn't feel at the collegiate level my capabilities of throwing the ball and all that were going to give me an opportunity to play a lot. So Cal was a very traditional. Their quarterbacks were 6'4", 220-pound drop back quarterbacks, pocket passers, and so that was not the element of kind of how I played. And so they looked at me strictly as a defensive guy. And so Cal had a great academic it was a great academic institution. It wasn't too far from LA. It fit a lot of things. There was a lot of opportunity for me to come in as a freshman and be involved right away. So it was just overall a good opportunity and a good school for me to go to.
Awesome.
No NIL money though.
Well, and yeah, and we'll get to that in a minute too. That has really changed college football as we know it. What is it? So our podcast name is Famosphere, and it's kind of a play on words with the fan atmosphere. What is the Famosphere at Cal like on a Saturday?
Well, it varies. It depends on who we play. I was, Cal historically has been moderately embraced by the community, by the Bay Area. And so some games, you get 40,000 people, some you get 75,000 people. It's not like the Southeast Conference where every game's sold out and whatnot. So it's a little different vibe to a lot of other collegiate atmospheres. Um, what was really I was impressed with the Cal environment was a year or so ago they were on ESPN Game Day, and the kids all came out at midnight and spent the whole night there to be ready for the event the next day, and it was great. It was one of the better game day events. A lot of guys made comments after that hey, this was epic. It was great
Mm-hmm.
coming to Berkeley and being involved in this. And then they went out and played a great game against Miami and lost on the last play of the game. But so the environment there is really fun. The stadium is historic. It's Memorial Stadium, so it's a little old school in terms of its facade. They've renovated the inside. To me, there is no better place to go watch a college football game than Memorial Stadium. It's got that modern update to it, but a great setting. It's Strawberry Canyon. You've got great views. You can go up a couple levels in the stadium and look out at the Golden Gate Bridge. And so, from an environment now, I love it. I love going back up to games there. It's just a fun place to go watch a game. It's not a ultra modern indoor arena setting. It's kind of old school football. And so I kind of harken back to those days of a little less social media, a little less, where you go to some stadiums and it's all electronics and big
Yeah.
screen TVs and that kind of stuff. This is more back to football, what it was supposed to be.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I, I've always enjoyed seeing pictures of that stadium, and hopefully one day I get to get out and see it. But
Yeah, no doubt.
Well worth the trip. I guarantee you'll enjoy.
well, I'll tell you what, if we ever make that trip out, we'll send you an invite.
All right, there you go. There you go.
You talked about just Cal and how they're perceived in the just within the area. How has that changed with teams coming back to LA as far as the pros go, with the Rams and the Chargers? How has that dynamic changed how college football is seen in the area?
Yeah, I don't know if it had a big impact on the Bay Area fans. The big loss, I think, for a lot of Bay Area fans was when the Raiders left, and left a big void there. There's a huge backing of 49er fans up there. It's like everywhere else, there's just a lot of activities to do right now. There's a lot of sports, a lot of, things that divert people's attention. So you've got to be a consistent winner at a high level to fill a stadium. And Cal has had success some years and then down at the bottom and then in the middle. And so the big push right now with that program is getting to that top tier of competition. And what drives a fan base is success. There are super loyal fans, Cal fans, that will go win or lose. But to bring a full stadium in, you've got to kind of have, especially when there's alternative, social events and things to do. You go to Alabama, hey, Alabama football is what they got. You
Mm-hmm.
go to the area, there's 100 things going on. So to get that same crowd base, you need to have a consistent winner, and that's the big emphasis right now. There's a new coach that just took over, Ron Rivera, who I played with, is now the general manager at Cal, and a lot of positive enthusiasm around the program and where they're going, and with NIL and the portal, you're able to kind of hopefully attract guys and become kind of like Indiana, somewhat overnight you're a national champion, you know. So we're hoping that happens this year at Cal.
Absolutely. You mentioned the NIL, and I think the game that you're talking about when you mentioned the game day game against
Right.
Miami, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the year that Fernando Mendoza was still the starting quarterback at Cal.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Correct.
So talk a little bit about the NIL and how you think that You know, and I think the kids should get paid. Don't get me wrong. And you played at that level. I think that college athletes deserve to be paid. But what do you think the direction of it should go? And how do you feel about? Because I mean, Indiana practically scalped the Cal starting quarterback, and
Right.
he, you know,
The NIL, I agree. Kids should be paid. They should be compensated at a even basis. I think
mhm,
the current structure of NIL is way out of line. It's going to ruin college football because you have the haves and the have-nots. So
right,
if you want 20 teams that have an unlimited budget to play each other, then there's a competition. But you don't. You have some schools that don't have an NIL budget. You have some schools that have a tremendous. I mean, when we start talking about $40 million a year as a payroll basis for certain colleges, the inequity. It's supposed to be kind of an even playing field that creates competition in what college sports is all about. And I think that the skewing of what NIL has become is going to ruin this game. You're not going to have, because there's not many schools. I have a good friend that coaches at Fresno. They don't have an NIL budget. They don't, but they'll go out and they'll recruit a kid that nobody else wants, grow them up a little bit, and then Alabama will come in and say, "We'll give you $2 million to leave Fresno," and the guy's like, "How can I forget? How can I not do that?" So,
absolutely,
to me, it's a good. Hey, there's a small percentage of kids that are getting a great benefit from this, and there's a lot of kids that are kind of getting left on the sideline, and programs cannot function. I mean, I know coaches at the collegiate level that not only does NIL influence who they bring in, but who stays. I mean,
hmm
Hmm.
now every year they got to go back and negotiate with 100 kids to stay, and then 40 kids leave, and now I got to go recruit and pay 40 kids to come in and take their place. So it's created. If schools have the money, once again I look at Indiana, who was never on the radar of college football, and then all of a sudden they've got the top team in the country. And so it creates opportunities like that. But I would like to see it as a fair basis of pay for all the kids, and that there's a cap, and then kind of eliminate this portal element, um,
yeah,
because once again, kids are just coming, going. You don't know who's on the roster. Before it was kind of fun to watch a freshman come into your program, develop as a sophomore and a junior, and you've kind of fall. Now
that's
you don't
gone.
even know who's on the
Yeah,
who's on
Hmm.
the team.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so it to me it just is a kind of a spiral down. I think you talk to any programs who are highly involved with the NIL stuff, they don't like it. I mean, how do you generate 20-30 million dollars a year to give to kids every year?
Hmm.
it's
It's
not
a
sustainable.
no. And so I think there's some steps being made to kind of correct it, but to me, it's a non-sustainable disadvantage. A school like Cal, first of all, you have academic barriers to getting in, and so not you've
Hmm.
got that element, and then you have a good support base, but they're not going to be paying $50 million a year to become, a number one team, and so uh, it'll be interesting to see where it evolves to.
Well, and I look at it like this too. Yeah, it's hurting. It's a hurt to the programs, but I also feel
Right.
like there are a lot of kids that are getting bad advice from
Right.
maybe a
Yeah.
manager or somebody. And I
Yeah.
look at it from this side. You take a kid that maybe is at Cal, and a degree from Cal carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if they hop in the portal, I saw a statistic, and it was a ridiculous number this past portal of kids that had jumped in the portal and had no home when it closed.
Yeah.
So their
Yeah.
career ended,
Yeah.
and some of them could have been playing for years at the school they were at.
Yeah.
So, you take a kid that maybe is somewhere like Cal or Stanford or something like that, and they hop in the portal thinking the grass is greener, and they don't get a phone
Yeah.
call,
Yeah.
now you're out on both ends. You have no piece of paper that,
No.
sets you up for life. And so something needs to change. Something needs to happen in that regard to help the programs and these kids.
Well, I agree. I mean, I just think you have this open door to non-qualified agent representation. So
Yes.
kids are getting advice from who knows who they're getting advice from, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not always sound advice. Hey, we hear about the top tier guys all the time. Hey, they're going to be taken care of. They got their money, and hopefully these young guys are investing that money and not pretending to that's I'm going to have this kind of money forever. Some of these guys might get hurt. I my big discussion with a lot of these kids is not who your agent is, but who's your financial advisor, and what kind of steps are you taking to say, hey, I'm 18, 19, 20 years old. This may end tomorrow. So I better take this little nest egg and invest it wisely,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe
Absolutely.
it'll benefit me 20 years from now, and not live a lifestyle that I'm, making $800,000 every year. And I don't know if a lot of these kids are getting that advice, to be honest with you. I talked to the guys at Cal, and their premise was that, hey, before the season even started, we've already had 3 meetings with financial people to kind of make sure our guys that are getting some money are smart with it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a big element. I don't know if people are taking care of kids who all of a sudden they're 18 years old with $2 million, what kind of advice they're getting. So, anyways, I think there's a lot of shady elements to this whole NIL deal, and hopefully corrective steps will be made that kind of even it out a little bit.
I agree. I agree
Absolutely,
completely.
100%. We do definitely need some guardrails and some backstops to help not only, like you said, the programs, but essentially the biggest thing is the kids,
Absolutely.
and make sure that these kids that are getting life changing money
Yeah.
changes their lives for the
Yeah.
better, not
Positively. Yep.
Exactly.
but not to be bankrupt
Right.
at 22
Yeah.
because you had bad advice.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
Jesse, I've got one more question for
Okay.
Kevin. I don't know if you have any more. Uh,
I have at least one, maybe two.
um, I bet we still have the same one. Kevin, you talked about John Elway being the quarterback on the other side of the field when you made the play. You were not drafted, but did spend time in 1984, if I'm not mistaken, with the Broncos.
Yeah.
Did the play ever come up between you and Elway? Did you rib him any about it? Was there just kind of like a joking thing there, or how did that go
No,
down?
there was a lot of sensitivity. Elway did not take that loss very
He's a
well. I
competitor, of
mean,
course not.
yeah, there was just a lot of bitterness. The perception was that one, it cost him the Heisman. Two, it cost their team a bowl game, and so there was a lot of sensitivity to him. When I got to the Broncos, I did not want to talk about the play. I didn't want that. Those environments become very protective, especially of a guy like Elway. So if something is perceived to be a negative influence on that guy, let's get rid of the negative influence. And so I kind of wanted to just do my own thing. I knew Elway from high school. Actually, I played against him in a All-Star game, the Shrine All-Star game, our after our senior year, and it kind of crossed paths with him. I played baseball as well, and he was a baseball player.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
there was never a sense of animosity, and I definitely didn't want to rub that into his face. Once again, there's a lot of things. When I got there, there was a newspaper guy that I did an article with, interview with, and I was just hoping nobody read it, about the play and about the event. And so anyways, over the years, I've done a couple interviews with him. We did a big, uh, kind of a documentary together. And over the years, you could see his mellowing element of that play being more historical versus anger and bitterness about it. And I told him, hey, I worried about you my whole life until I saw you hold up the Super Bowl trophy. And I kind of figured you'd be all right after that. And so, he went on and overcame that hurdle and kind of had a Hall of Fame career and a great career. I just saw a documentary that came out about Elway, and he seems to be doing all right these days.
Yeah. You mentioned documentary, the 30 for 30, the Elway to Marino
Right.
might be one of the best 30 for 30s I think I've
Yeah.
ever watched. There's quite a few good ones, but that was one of the best ones.
Yeah.
Mr. Moen, you mentioned earlier in this, you referenced the Pac-10, and my nostalgic heart almost exploded on that. I can remember the Pac-10, and a lot of our listeners probably don't remember a Pac-10. They are only familiar with the Pac-12. But now we went from a Power 5 to a Power 4. What are your thoughts on the overall conference realignment from the entire college football perspective? And Cal being in the ACC, they still have Stanford. They still have that game at least. But what are your thoughts on them no longer being in the Pac-12 or Pac-10 even?
It's a foreign world. To me, I'm a traditionalist. I love the rivalry games. I love to be able to know you're going to be playing in Oregon or you're going to be playing in Arizona or Washington or SC. I mean, I miss our games against our LA rival type of thing. And so when that went down, it was pretty disheartening. It's just another sign of money being the influence versus tradition. And I understand all that, but for me to align our games with Clemson and Florida State and Wake Forest, I mean, those are just teams we're not associated with. You might play them as a preseason game every now and then. I know when I was playing, we played Georgia, we played Florida one year, and those were just non-conference things. So to align in a conference that's on the East Coast, you don't have any tradition with that, and they're just games, and it's fun to see some new teams and whatnot. But I think when they imploded the Pac-12, that lost just a lot of traction with me about college sports. That was just another sign that it's heading in a direction that doesn't align with me as just a pure fan and what I like to enjoy. So, where I understand this is going, and there's a big emphasis at Cal and Stanford that we've got to be a top tier team. We've got to be, because they're going to realign the realignment to kind of, hey, if you're in the top 50 teams, you're in the money. If you're out of that realm, who knows where you're playing or who you're playing. So, in some regards, I kind of was thinking that they would realign the Pac-12 again, and they would end up in a conference like, Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, Stanford, Fresno, Boise State, more of that kind of alignment. And if we don't get to that top tier, that may occur. They may realign the Pac-12 with just a whole different set of teams that are more aligned with not having this huge NIL budget, a huge emphasis on winning. Right now, we're trying to avoid that. I'll tell you right now, the Tosh Lupoy at Cal, he's a top tier guy and wants to put Cal on the football map of our country. And so we'll see how this next 2 years go. To me, my understanding is that following these next 2 years, they're going to make a selection of the top, 50, 75 teams, and those are the guys that are getting the money and the TV alignment. So we'll see what happens here, but I miss the old Pac-12.
I agree. I'm with y'all.
The kids do too, because the stress on travel and whatnot is huge. I mean, and the cost of that.
Right.
Well, growing up in the East Coast, knowing that you're going to have those late night Pac-12 games as a college football fan were so exciting. You had Stanford, Oregon, Stanford USC, Stanford Cal. You had those games that you knew you could watch.
Yeah.
And, we still have a couple of them, but like you mentioned, Cal
Right.
USC, Cal UCLA, those are out the window unless
Mhm.
they get matched up in a bowl game or a playoff or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
And I watched an interview pretty recently on Tim Tebow where he was talking about those rivalries and the impact those rivalries have on
Right.
college football.
Yeah.
And you see Texas A&M and Texas just played this year with the realignment because of the realignment. But
Right.
before that, you lost that rivalry. And so I hope that we do somehow get back to that, to where we get those rivalry games back at least.
Absolutely.
But that will kill, between that and the NIL, that could kill college football as we
Yeah.
know it.
I mean, that's, to me, the college sports is supposed to be young guys going to school and getting a degree and having the
Having pride.
pageantry of
Yeah.
college football,
Mhm.
and part of that is those rivalry games. And
Yes.
you mean, I understand Notre Dame's not playing SC anymore. That to me was a historic rivalry game
Oh,
too.
yeah.
That, has vanished for whatever reason. And so, anyways, I when you get old, you start looking back at the past, and I wish there were certain elements that had stayed in the current times.
I'm
Absolutely.
with you. I'm not a big fan of change myself,
Yeah,
especially in college football. I like my college
yeah,
football the way it is,
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Keith, I don't have anything else for Mr. Moen unless you do. So, Mr. Moen, we always, in every segment, Keith and I started this when we started doing this a long time ago originally. We started doing what we call a 5 and 5. It's a top 5 list in a 5-minute window. We have a theme for you. We're going to put you on the spot, which that's the whole point of these, is to be put on the spot a little bit. We were talking about the play. Obviously, that's why we're here, talking about the play. What were the top 5 things that happened for you or for Cal because of the play?
Well, I got to start with I got a statue at the stadium. That's one
That's
big
awesome.
That is awesome.
monument to our, and it's really more a monument to our team. And so,
Yeah.
it's just kind of reflective of great team effort, never quitting, all those kind of things. Um, I got to experience, one thing that play did too was kind of bind our team together from that era. And so it led to being able to go back and have great reunions and great memories with old teammates. So there's two elements. The third was I got to do a lot of things from where I wouldn't have, doing interviews with you guys or with Eli Manning, and I did the Today Show and those kind of things that you just wouldn't be on my radar if that play hadn't happened. They did actually a band member from Stanford wrote a great book. So if you ever want to read a good book, there's
Absolutely.
a book he wrote that came out like 2 years ago. I think it's called Five Laterals and a Trombone.
Okay. I'll check that
So
out.
it's great reading. So I got to associate with a book, and then the last element is a bobblehead. I got to. There was a great event at one of the big games to honor that play was a bobblehead. So
That's
we
awesome.
That's
got it
cool.
all. We
Okay,
got
the
it all
bobblehead,
associated.
the book and the bobblehead are on my list of
Yeah,
things to acquire. I need to check that out. I want
yeah.
the
There you
bobblehead
go.
would look good on my shelf, so I
Yeah,
need a
Would.
there you
bobblehead.
go. There you go. So those are five elements that kind of stand out relating to the involvement in that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That, well, you were instrumental in probably the greatest, maybe not just the greatest college football moment, but maybe the greatest sports moment
Yeah,
ever. That
yeah,
I mean that play is talked about by many, many people. People that don't even know college football, they know
yeah,
about the band is on the field. The band is on the
yeah,
field. They know that play.
yeah,
Mhm.
So that's a really cool moment in time.
yeah.
But I don't have anything else, Keith.
Good. This has been wonderful.
It's
Appreciate
been
you taking
awesome.
time to talk to us,
You're
college
welcome.
football junkies, and
Good luck to you guys.
thank
Keep
you.
keep keep the collegiate spirit going.
Absolutely.
Thank
We
you.
sure will.